Time now to join Frank O'Callaghan for the next instalment of the series Dundalk's Radio and Television People. Part 5. Frank Byrne recalls starting with John McCardle, 74 Park Street, as a TV technician in 1961 after applying for the position which he saw advertised in the Dundalk Democrat. Tom Lamb remembers working in Orky O'Neill's in Earl Street before joining GEC in 1961, travelling to work by train from Dundalk and walking to the factory from the station in Dunleer. Both attended electronics classes run by Seamus Fox, who was a production manager in GEC.
Well, I started work, I think it was 1959. I was in John McCardle's for a short period of time, and I went back to technical school and done an extra year. And then I got a job in Orky O'Neill's radio and television department. Mickey Keenan was the engineer there. Paddy O'Hagan was the next to Mickey. Then Jim Kelly, and I was the boy. So the like of cleaning screens on TVs, cleaning volume controls on radios or changing valves. That would have been 1959, 1960.
Actually, Brian O'Neill mentioned that to me, that you worked very well in there, not as the little boy at the bottom, but when you grew up into the system. Just go back a track there. You said you went back to the technical college.
Yeah.
What do you explain the technical college as it was?
Technical school.
Yeah. Was that down in Chapel Street?
That was in Chapel Street at the time. It was a vocational school. So you done more practical subjects than theoretical. You done Irish, English, maths. You done metalwork, woodwork, mechanical drawing, physical training, magnetism, electricity.
You see, most people now, Tom, wouldn't realise that sort of education went on way back at that point in time. And even in my youth, when back then, I remember the name of a guy who did the woodwork. He was from Dunleer. He was very...
Kieran Coulter.
Kieran Coulter.
Kieran Coulter was the woodwork instructor, and Pete McCourt. They were the two woodwork instructors. Now, Kieran Coulter's workshop was, you know where the library buildings is, across the road from the old technical school. Indeed. And there was galvanised sheds.
Yeah, down at the back on the left-hand side.
Yes.
Before you got to the ESB office.
Behind the girls' technical school.
Yeah.
The boys' technical school was at the end of, was it Market Street or Bachelor's Walk? Bachelor's Walk, right. Now across the street then was the girls' school. Yeah. And behind that there was 3 galvanised sheds. And there was a circular saw in there and a planer and that type of thing. And that was Kieran Coulter's.
Frank, moving over to yourself just for a minute, tell me a little bit about your background and before you went to work and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, well, my background, living on the Ardee Road in Rath, out close to Ballybarrick, where they had a famous football team, so most of my youth was taken on in football.
The name of that team was?
Ballybarrick. The Babes. The Babes, yeah, Mick and Desi Babe. 2 brothers.
All good players.
Yeah. Came over from England to avoid conscription.
Really?
Yeah, in 1952. The father was from Murdochs, were out from Falkhill.
Well, deviating very slightly, they had a very good team in do you remember the 5-a-side during the festival?
That's right.
You didn't play on that team, did you?
I didn't know.
They had an excellent team in that.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. Go on there.
That's okay. Knew very little about radio, TV. In actual fact, we had no electricity in our own house until I was 16. That electricity came in about 1959. It was, prior to that, it was tilly lamps and sawdust burners and one thing and another. Candles, very much so, the old. But yeah, so the problem was getting electricity to our house. While we lived in the urban area on the Ardee Road, the electricity had to come from the rural area. The supply was from the rural, and it was more expensive. And the 3 families out there decided. So, but anyway, we got an electricity, and I remember my first exposure to wires and that was up in the attic, just the attic where they cut out the door to get into the attic. And I was the smaller one. I was probably about 14 at the time. and I was rummaging around there, putting wires down for lights and switches. But anyway, I was always fascinated with radios. We used to have an old battery radio, 2 batteries on it. Tom would know a lot more of it than I do. The wet cell, was that for the heaters, Tom?
Yeah, 2 volt wet cell for the heaters, and
In 18 volt?
No, it was either 56 volt or 90 something volts.
A dry battery.
A dry battery,
Yes.
and that was the most expensive one.
That's right.
Moving on, if we can, just for a minute to when you started the work. Tell me, Frank, where did you start to work in the industry?
In the industry, my first job was in John McArdle, 74 Park Street.
Yeah.
Answered an advertisement in the Democrat paper. The advertisement attracted me towards it. Was advertised as a TV technician, I think, Tom, was the word that they used. TV technician.
Yeah.
Wrote out my application, dear sir, got the interview with John McArdle and got the job started off. But being a technician meant ladders, roofs, putting up aerials, driving around. But so that was my first exposure to electronics.
Was it a safety issue?
Oh yeah, there was no health and safety in those days. If the roof had a slow, in one particular area of town that had a very low deviation on it, we wouldn't even use the roof ladder. You'd scurry up.
If it was tiles, you'd walk up
You'd
tiles.
walk up the tiles. The slates were a bit slippy. Yeah. So applied for the job in John McArdle's, got interviewed with John, and funny enough, he said, my grandfather helped his grandfather way back in Dunbin, where they both came from. And sure, when I heard that, I said, I think I'm going to get this job.
The omens are good.
So got started on the TVs, and that was in 1961, I think. 61. Enjoyed it there, but it, as we were discussing earlier, there was no formal apprenticeship in TV repairs. You couldn't, like electrician, you couldn't go in and serve your time. There was no qualified people. It was recognised by city and guilds, and we were all keen to get qualifications. So I went to night classes. Seamus Fox, I think we mentioned his name earlier. Tom is familiar with Seamus. Seamus was a production manager in GEC, and he started off privately with teaching. There was about 7 or 8 of us used to go to Seamus's house, bungalow on the opposite Meehan's, close to Meehan's on the Dublin Road.
That was Seamus that eventually had the company at the square, electric house.
That's right, he did indeed, yes. He left GEC later on and started up on his own. But Seamus got us all interested, and it was a way into GEC, in all honesty, for me, because he'd seen me interested in electronics, and he told me there was a job going as a picture tester, Tom. Do you remember that?
That's right, yeah.
And Frank, just to answer my question, was Seamus working in the GEC?
Oh, he's production manager.
Oh yeah, and then he was doing.
He was doing this at night. It was He had a good interest in he needed young fellas trained as well for.
Oh, so it was not only was it earning him the few bob, but he was getting.
He was getting people in that knew a bit about like TVs and so forth. So.
And Tom, did you cutting across you there? Did you go to Seamus Fox as well?
We were, Frank and myself, both of us were there at the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember Seamus telling me at one stage that he was in the Irish Army, and he got part of his radio training in the Irish Army. So he would have having some formal type of training.
Education and training.
Yeah. But he wouldn't have having that time. If you were in the public service, the post office or the army or anything, and if you got training, you didn't get certification, because if you had certification, you could leave and get another job. So, state jobs didn't give you certification.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So they were safeguarding that person's employment to themselves. Yeah.
In the post office, my father was in the post office, and in the post office, they did not call you an apprentice. They called you a youth in training.
Well, now you're going to answer the big question for me. I read somewhere, but couldn't believe what I was reading, that apprentices that we have now were youth in training back in the day, and as such, they didn't get paid any money. Is that true or false?
I didn't have to pay any money when I started, but a friend of mine that was serving his time with some electrical contractor, I don't know who, he was telling me his mother had to pay £60, 60 Irish pounds, for him to start his apprenticeship.
And then did he get a wage? Because my understanding was that he didn't actually. And I got that out of a book that was written by a guy called Fintan Harman, who worked in the GEC. We'll come back to Fintan later. He made the point that apprentices in the GEC didn't actually get paid.
Sorry, can I? There were gentlemen apprentices.
Gentlemen apprentices.
Martin McCourt himself, that was the managing director of GEC, served his time as a gentleman apprentice with my father in the old GNR and the old railway.
Yeah.
He didn't get paid. He came from a wealthy background, so to speak. There were solicitors in the family, but he got the apprenticeship, and then he deviated from that into management and was the managing director in GEC and AET in later years.
Yeah.
But yes, they didn't get paid.
Just to clarify the point, Frank, you said a gentleman. Are you saying that you weren't paid if you came from a money background, but you might get paid if you came from Northern?
Oh, you did. My father started in the railway in 1916. He was a fitter turner, as they called him in those days.
Yeah.
His father was a wee small farmer, but he had to pay a fee to get him into the railway. Yeah, his other brothers didn't have to pay fees. They went in as labourers. If you went in as a general labourer, you didn't. But I don't know what his fee was, but I don't know what it was, but they had to pay money to get him to serve his time.
If you, like, in say 1960 to 65, if you were working at electrical work, radio and television work, or anything like that, number one, you're hoping you're going to go to a house or an area where you're going to get a cup of tea and you might get a tip.
That's nice.
And if you got a red 10 shilling note,
You're on the biggest
that was
big money.
50 pence.
Yeah.
Yes.
That red 10 shilling note, that was an awful lot of money.
Lot of money.
And then I remember in Orky O'Neill's, I was on £1.10 shillings
That's right.
when I left. I was only in it for a year, and then the job.
You were a young guy at that stage, but you were in your youth.
Yeah.
So what did one?
I would have been 16.
And what did that mean to you in terms of the value of it per week? Did that allow you to survive? Did that make a contribution to the house, or how did you use that sort of money?
I'll tell you what it meant. It was 4 pence into the pictures in the magnet.
Yes. That was the piss.
Or the Delphi or Park Street Picture House. 4 pence, and that was closest to the screen. And if you were a bit older, you were making more money, you could go to the 8 pennies. And that was back further, and the seats were more comfortable. And in the magnet, was it a shilling?
The balcony.
The balcony.
Yeah.
And some of the balcony seats in the magnet had double seats. So if you're company keeping with a young lady, you'd be rushing in to get the double seats in the balcony. But if you were going with the boys, you'd go to the 4 pennies.
Yeah, you're saving your money. So the point being that on whatever you were earning, you could actually live on it as a young
The
person.
bag of chips was 6 pence.
Can you remember what they call the fish and the chip? Or was it the peas and the chip?
Yeah.
Solo, was it?
Solo, yeah.
Round, was that in the Laurels, Hanrahan?
That
wasn't
in the
York
Laurels,
Street,
yeah.
But you were saying, Frank, the way I started in John McArdle's at £1 10 shillings, like Tom said.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think how much we paid to the evening classes. We went 2 nights a week, Tom. What was it?
I forget what it was, but it was payable. All I know is it was paid. I didn't have to ask my parents for it.
You paid it out of your wages.
I was paying it out of my wages.
And was that the Seamus Fox?
Yeah. But
That was Seamus Fox. That we were, it was about eight. I think I counted 8, Tom, that could go to it. That were going to it.
Well,
Paddy O'Hagan.
those I was there, you were there, Paddy O'Hagan was there, Mickey Neary. Did Mickey Neary go?
Neary was there, he did, yeah.
Willie Malloy went for a while as well.
I didn't know him. Tony
My
Dowdle.
brother-in-law. So those...
maybe 5 or 6.
I'd say those between 6 and 8.
Yeah.
And
Andy Rogers went to it as well.
Andy, right, right.
My introduction to GEC was through Seamus Fox. He had me going to the night classes. So he organised for me to go for an interview Thursday afternoon, to go up to GEC for an interview, and I had to see a man called McHenry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
McHenry was the works manager. Seamus Fox was the production manager, I think. and I was asked for McHenry. So I went into Nusham Court, where you filled in your application form, and she was sending me way off to some other department. I said, no, I'm going to the television department. Oh, you can't be coming in here determining where you're going to, you'll go to where we, well, I said, no, I have an appointment to see Mr. McHenry. Oh, that changed everything once you heard McHenry say that.
Yeah.
So I went into McHenry, up the steps. His office was looking down on the production floor. It was an upstairs version, and he had total visibility.
That's right.
See what was going on.
Supervisory control.
Supervisory control.
That
yes.
was common.
And he put me through a few various details and one thing and another. So I convinced him I knew what to get started. But I went to Dunleer on my 50cc NSU autocycle. ZY5347. I think so. And heading out from Dundalk for Dunleer on my NSU, was it 20 miles, Tom? How far was Dunleer away? 14?
Was it about 17?
17.
15, 17
Yeah.
miles, something like that.
Yeah.
In the winter time.
So this was going for the interview. On the Thursday after, and I got as far as Kilcerdan, and I thought that's where the factory was. There was a factory. Goes to show you, there was a factory there that
Firelight factory.
I actually stopped and went in there to see was that GEC.
Rackets,
On the right hand side,
Yeah,
going into Kilcerdan. No, you got to go on Sun. You go to another bit. So, but yeah.
So you were a well-travelled man.
Well-travelled man, and then when you got the job, the thing was to get a lift up from Dundalk up to Dunleer. The buses didn't suit, but there was usually someone with a car, carpooling.
Yeah.
And was it 10 shillings a week we paid, Tom? He would take 4 or 5 people. It would pay for the petrol.
It would pay for the petrol, between 10 and 15 shillings, depending on the time.
Yeah. It was 10 shillings we started
When I
off.
went in 1960, it was the train. The train used to stop in Dunleer, and you could get a weekly ticket. And you could get off at the platform Dunleer, walk to the Barn Road,
That's right.
and just go down, I'd say about 250 yards, and you were at the gate of the factory. You know, you went in there and you clocked in.
You should mention that, because I see there's a drive at the moment to open the,
Open that again.
which wouldn't be a bad thing. Yeah.
Now, just Seamus Fox then went to live in Black Rock,
That's right.
and we used to go to Black Rock. And my best friend then was Joe McCarroll, panel beater from Linens to Hall Street. And Joe had a little Morris Minor car. And you could drive cars that time without a licence. And I used to get the lend of Joe's car, whatever night it was, Tuesday or Wednesday night of the class, and I'd drive it up to Castle or to Black Rock, to Seamus Fox's house, and drive it back and leave it back with Joe.
Do then that you can't do now. Yeah, and rightly so, I suppose. But they were of the day. That's what people did, and that's how the system worked.
Exactly. I know that I bought a Hercules bike off George Elliott in Ann Street, and that was 7 shillings a week on HP. That was what that was.
Yeah.
And did that bike eventually belong to you?
I have it in the roof space. Oh yes. And I had to actually take a hire purchase form round to my parents, and they had a sign, either mother or father, I don't know, I forget which, but they had a sign over a stamp, their signature.
I remember that, yeah.
The guarantor, weren't they?
That they were the guarantor that I would pay this money,
Yes.
you know.
Can you remember the name of the bicycle, the manufacturer?
It was Hercules.
Oh, you said
It was actually, that was an Irish company. The Raleigh was too dear. I couldn't afford a Raleigh, so the Hercules was so much cheaper.
In this, the 5th part of the series, Dundalk's Radio and Television People, we heard from Frank Byrne and Tom Lamb. The next programme continues with the second part of this interview. Frank and Tom talk in detail about the working processes and environment at the GEC factory. John Fox remembers his father Seamus, who also worked in GEC before setting up his own business, Electrotel, at the Market Square in Dundalk. The series, Dundalk's Radio and Television People, was researched and presented by Frank O'Callaghan and recorded and edited by Alan Byrne.